This is Fam Electric Ghost, and we're live on the air with Tom Gersic. And your company is basically it's UEx.ai. Is that right? How do you say
Yeah,
that?
yeah. Thank you. Glad to be on the show. It's UX.ai, and that's
Sorry.
spelled YOUEX.ai. It's a play on the concept of user experience, but making it about you.
Yeah, that's cool. So you know, you've been in the industry for go to market strategies, and your platform is designed where you're destined to be like a single destination for B2B sales teams to generate like turning pipeline chaos into revenue. That's kind of like the high level elevator pitch of what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah.
But before we get to the heart of your story, I ask every guest a couple questions. What motivates you, and why do you do what you do?
What motivates me is it's a really good question. What motivates me is getting up and being productive and getting things done, and being able to just see things kind of progress. I'm a builder at heart. I kind of started my career as a programmer, as an engineer, doing web development back in like 2000, and kind of moved on from there. Built some programs while I was at Salesforce while we were doing product adoption, and then built a sales team at the Altimetric, which is an OpenAI partner, as we were kind of starting to sell AI projects along with OpenAI, and then decided to leave and build a company and build a product. So being able to see that kind of progression of something going from an idea to being available and people using it, that's what gets me excited.
Now, you've been involved like in Salesforce and these other companies you talked about. Um, is the idea of AI replacing salespeople, is that overblown, or is it really just a tool?
Yeah, I think it's overblown. And I think we've seen, kind of technological hype cycles again and again and again. There's usually the same concern, right? Like the computer came out and people had the same concern. Oh, you're not going to need people anymore. It's all the computers. And then, I think with AI, it does have a job market disruption, but I think overall, what we'll see over time is that people are still in control. It's artificial intelligence. It's not taking over all jobs or anything like that. What we're seeing is if you build AI and you focus on how do you make everybody in your organization have the same superpowers as your best people, that's where the companies I've worked with, and it's been Fortune 100 enterprise companies that are rolling out AI, that's what they focus on, and that's where they see success. So if you're rolling out a sales app that uses AI, focus on how do you take your best seller, what's really unique about them, and how do you make everybody else have those same kind of superpowers. So I think what we're really seeing is that in areas and roles where AI is really taking hold, we're seeing job growth, and so I don't think it's the thing that's taking every job. I see why people are concerned, but I think if you lean into it and you really kind of use AI to be the productivity tool that it is, it's no different than any other technological hype cycle that we've seen throughout history.
I think it's a value add to me. It's a tool. Like I'm in tech, and I work with a small startup, and our sales guys, basically the founders of the company, one of the guys that founded the company is a kind of face to face handshake type of guy.
Yeah.
Now he uses AI to help him with his presentations, right?
Yeah.
But it's still face to face. So he's like like a level sales guy. He's a owner of the company.
Yeah.
He has these handshake face to face meetings, but he uses AI to do a value add to be able to like ramp him up. So basically, he doesn't have to have a team of 10 people with him on the road. He can use the AI to kind of supplement what he needs. And I think what I've seen is that value add. If somebody, what I've seen people make mistakes is they go in and say, well, I'm going to replace all my CSRs.
Yeah.
And then the customers start complaining and you hire 700 of them back
Yeah.
because people don't like an automaton,
Right.
just like they didn't like the old systems that were all kind of menu driven and they could never get to a person.
Yes.
Like if you try to just eliminate all human contact, I think you're going to lose sales.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's a really good point, right? If you think about who are the best sellers, who are what do you, if you have a sales team, what do you want them focusing on? And that's, you want them out there talking to people, meeting people, like you just said, like shaking hands, meeting people, building relationships, because that's what really that's what the best sellers have always done. They're the ones that are out there building good relationships, building trust, and ultimately driving revenue and sales from that. I think that that's ultimately what my app is trying to do, is to make it easy for a sales user to do that. Get the value out of AI, focus on the things that they do best, which is building relationships and meeting people and driving sales. And don't make them have to figure out all of the various, intricacies of AI. I think what we're seeing in the market right now is that, AI tools were built by engineers for engineers primarily, right? So you see a lot of things like, oh, there's a slash command to do that, or you see, oh, you install, what is it, OpenClaw, and you can have it run and delete all your email, or like all of these things where it's really designed for a specific persona, and those are the people that are really getting a lot of value out of it. If you look at the numbers that are coming out of Anthropic or OpenAI, you see engineering use cases getting a ton of value out of all of these. Like Gemini has a coding tool, Cursor. But when you look at other use cases, sales use cases, customer support use cases, things like that, it's really much, much lower when you look at it from a human potential to use AI perspective. It's like 5% of sales and CRM use cases are being driven by AI today, by people using AI today, rather. And so that's really the focus, is like, how do you create a user experience that really works for a selling persona? And it's not, okay, now you need to learn how to use AI. When I talk to sellers, they're not like, oh, I want to learn all of these things about AI. They want to learn how to use it to get their job done, right? Like they're focused on doing their job. That's how they get paid, right? Like a seller gets paid when they close business. And so
they don't want to learn to get a certificate in prompt engineering.
Exactly.
I don't think when you tell everybody, like, you got to go get like a bachelor's science level degree in prompt engineering.
Yeah.
Like I've always worked in companies that, that built waterfall, or now agile based, basically policy admin systems. I've worked in the insurance industry, building policy admin systems for property, casualty, annuity, life and health. And, we built these systems with UIs to try to, not be, think about what the CRMs are doing. Like, can we actually make it so they understand? Because they know the business. They know what an annuity is. They know what a life insurance policy is. But if they have to understand what my system is, we're not really winning. Because teach them how to use the system, and there's a 1,000-page manual.
Yeah.
Like, that's not really gonna make them, like, jump up and down and say, "I wanna read that 1,000-page manual."
No. And you see it on social networks all the time now, like LinkedIn. It's like half the posts are people explaining what different types of agents are and different types of LLMs. And, I think, it doesn't work for every type of, user.
I think they're trying to make it fit every use case.
Yeah.
And I believe there are some use cases like, robotics. AI is designed for robots.
Yeah.
It's designed to make an actual usable robot, in my opinion. It makes a very good robot, it makes a very good automation tool if you know what that flow is supposed to be.
Yeah.
Right. But the problem I have sometimes with it is if you have a lot of things in business that want repeatable processes that that's predictable.
Yeah.
And if you have something that every time you run it, it gives you a different answer.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily going to work for people who want predictable control.
No, of course not. So it needs to be governed. You need to, and I think that's one reason too why I think that there's a lot of hype right now about, is software dead? Is subscription software dead? Because you can just build it yourself. And I don't think that that's the case, because, I think you can build a lot of things yourself, and maybe that does eventually become part of the workflow. But at the same time, everybody loves to build things, and nobody loves to like maintain things or like to patch bugs, and like all of those types of things are the things that, like, if you're building a product, you have to make sure you're doing, and like security patches and making sure you're hitting compliance controls and governing the output of things, and all of those things are difficult and are the things that kind of pull apart what a system can be. So I think that we'll have builders always, but I think that AI tools make it a lot easier to get these types of things built within an organization. But I think you also have to think about how do you maintain a system over time? And how do you make sure that it's still working when, you know, the one person who built it leaves the company and things
Yeah,
like that?
that's why I think AI is really good to understand, like if you're thinking about like COBOL programmers,
Yeah.
nobody's teaching COBOL,
No.
right? So you got like AI like guys like me,
Yeah.
we live, being able to survive as consultants because like all these COBOL mainframes are still around.
Yeah.
Um, and none of the kids today, a lot of them don't know it. Now with AI, some of them can learn it, but then again, when they use it, they don't understand the context.
Yeah.
So if you don't understand the context, you come in kind of like you're reading the cliff notes, and that might work for 80%, but for the 20% unhappy path, it doesn't work. And then
Yeah.
you mess up and then you make mistakes. And so that's where I think like you still need human beings that make discernment.
Yeah.
And I think the discernment part is people always, oh, I can discern everything. But it's not. A human mind is still superior to any machine.
Yeah, absolutely. Just because we've designed a user interface that can respond conversationally doesn't mean that it's able to go out there and make the right decisions, or, you know, to drive a business or to be your CEO, or, you know, I think user interface, and it's amazing, right? Like, it's amazing what you can get done with it. But it still requires people to use it, and it's a tool in that way. And you know,
So what do you think most leaders get wrong about AI, like sales leaders? What's the big like top 5 wrong impressions?
yeah, I think one challenge we have in the market right now, in sales in particular, is there's a million different like point solutions. And when I talk to sellers, when I talk to sales leaders, what I hear is that a lot of them are now spending their time going from this tool to that tool to this tool to that tool to this, and then you're copying from like, okay, I've downloaded my leads from this thing, and I've uploaded them to this thing, and I've used them to then I think what you end up with the situation is now you have a seller who feels like their entire job is stitching together 10 different tools to get to,
Mhm.
to get to where they want to get to. And I think you end up in a situation where it's the seller working for the AI and not the other way around. I think if you think through a workflow for a business, you really want that person to be able to say like, okay, I'm going to farm off these tasks to the AI, and then I'm going to go out and have a conversation and actually kind of drive business forward, and it can help me. And that's the idea of YouEx.ai, is to really be able to say, I have leads. I don't want to, let those leads kind of die on the vine. But a lot of businesses do. They have more leads and they really know what to do with. So how can you
Mhm.
automate a lot of that follow-up, that maybe that first email out isn't the most valuable thing because you have a lead that came in from a website and you have an immediate email out. If you don't have a response to a web lead within like 24 hours, it's probably dead because they've moved on to
Mhm.
the next thing. And so if you have an email that's drafted, that's been able to research what that person's looking for, research what might be interesting to them, have that first email say like, hey, I noticed you were recently promoted. That's great. And this is where we can help you with this product, and I'll offer a discount or something like that to the web lead, so that that next call, when the person gets engaged, is already warm, is already like, hey, great.
Okay. So you have intelligent kind of out there doing that work. So it's not just some kind of like blast email that's the same. You're saying you actually have customized, individualized responses
individualized. Yeah.
based on the actual data.
Yeah, so that's the magic of the system, is that every lead that comes in gets researched. And that's a 4-step process. The first one, make sure it's not junk. The second one, researches the person on their own website. So if you're the CEO of the company you work for, we want to identify that because you're obviously a buyer and you're someone we want to jump and really try to, work with. The third step is it does a broad research across the internet looking for information about you, and it finds, what are your interests? Are you, and some things are, as a seller, to look for things like, oh, what school did you go to? Or like, maybe we worked for the same company in the past, or if we have a sports team fandom in common, or do we live near each
Mhm.
other, or anything like that, that gives you that, and that first thing to talk about. It tries to find things like that, and just like general interest. What do you blog about? What do you talk about generally online? Things like that. And then the fourth is really to do a targeted search of specific websites that might match a company's, ICP, or like what they're really looking for. So as an example, in a healthcare industry, you might be interested in the types of websites that doctors are, commonly found on, or, like physician review boards, things like that. If you're in the tech industry, you're probably going to be looking at Substack or LinkedIn. If you're, so it really depends. So that's the fourth step, is to really say, you can give us specific websites to look at and we'll research that. It generates a research report and uses that along with any intent signals and urgency that come through. So the three things that are really important in following up with a lead is, what is the intent of the person? What is the urgency of that person? How urgent are they looking for something? And then also, what do we know about them? What have we learned through that research? And through that, we can generate a follow-up email very easily and make it, either friendly or professional or consultative, but to generate that email rapidly based on all of those things, so that you have the perfect email that's immediately being sent out. And the human's still in the loop. The human still has the opportunity to say, no, I want to change it.
Okay, so you have human kind of gut check before
Mhm.
it goes out. You have like a review,
Mhm.
like workflow kind of approval,
Yeah.
disapproval workflow.
Yeah. Generate the email, send you a notification that's ready to go. You have the opportunity to review it and hit send. Yeah.
That's awesome, because I think that's the key. I think to today is like, we came for like more like there was like an assembly line world, or like the 80-20 rule or
Yeah.
90-10 rule. Everything's kind of trying to fit in a box.
Yeah.
But with this tech, even in manufacturing, because I lived in Japan for a while, it's like now you can have very customized assembly lines
Yeah.
where like not just one model is coming off that assembly line. Very customized models are coming. So it's the same idea. It's like you're doing very like your widget or your email is super customized. It's not just fitting like one case. It's
Yeah.
actually going through and adjusting to the customer, which I think that's what people want. People, even in medicine, we want medicine that's customized down to your DNA. It's
Yeah.
not just the same pill for everybody. It's
Yeah.
actually a pill for you, or the service for you. I think that's where this tech is allowing something maybe was like not possible. Would not work, because we couldn't figure out how to do it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I've noticed over the years, I've been in executive positions and get all kinds of cold email all the time. I've noticed over the years, the emails I tend to ignore are the ones that are like super formatted and they have a nice banner and they look really good. And it's like, okay, this is just it's not
Formula.
spam, but it's like just more formulaic. It went to 4,000 people. The ones that I've really been like, oh, I'm going to follow up on are the ones that, like, it looks like it came from, whether it came from an individual or not, it looks like it came from an individual. It mentions something about me, like it happens to, like, hey, I happen to notice you blogged about this recently, or, interesting, you play guitar, like things like that, just like random stuff about me that I'm like catches that little bit of attention. I'm like, yeah, I do. Or, like, yeah, I did blog about that. Did you find it interesting? Or, just to create that connection. It shows like that little bit of extra effort went into sending that email. And yeah, I have absolutely closed business with people based on that first email being more interesting to me than, than other emails that came across my mailbox.
So what's a good flow workflow, AI assisted workflow versus a bad one?
Yeah. So I think the good workflow and what we're really focused on is a repeatable workflow. And that is capturing the lead. So the first step is really, making sure that you can get a lead in the system very, very easily. And that is from a web agent. We have a web agent you can deploy on your website in 5 minutes or less. I had a few people say, like, no, you can't. That's not possible. So I recorded a YouTube video. If you go to the YouEx.ai YouTube channel, I have it in, I think it's 4 minutes and 50 seconds that I got it done in, create a new web agent, put it on my own website, and it was good to go. That web agent will collect information as people are asking questions like, hey, I have a question about your product, or hey, I have a question about you. It will also ask them for name and email and that kind of a thing. Offer to a meeting. It can set up a meeting with you, whatever. It can also, give offers. So if you have a coupon code, if you go to my website right now, you can get 50% off of my own product coupon code by talking to the agent. Things like that. Creates a lead. So it creates a lead very easily. You can also send an email to create a lead. You can also upload a spreadsheet or however you want to get it into the system. Once you have it captured, like I said, following up immediately is like the most critical thing with a new lead, because people are probably, if they're out there shopping for something, they are looking in more than one place. They looked at your thing, they're looking at 5 other things, and by tomorrow they've already forgotten about you. So sending that immediate email is kind of the next step. We do the research report immediately. So researching the individual, that helps with automation, but it will also help with the first call, right? So as soon as you talk to somebody, any good seller will tell you, do research first. And most good sellers, especially in an enterprise space, are probably spending a decent amount of time, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes before a call to get information about somebody. So they have that, like, they know a little bit. If you're selling $1 million project, you want to know who you're talking to. And so it does that research immediately. All you have to do is read the report. The next thing that it does is it scores it, and taking those intent signals based on anything that came through in an email or the web chat or the research is the, kind of the next step. And then the urgency kind of based on how did they look at a bunch of pages on my website, or are they just on the one page? Like, what are they looking at? And to be able to come up with a score based on that, and also based on their propensity to be like a buyer for their company. Are they on their website? Are they an executive buyer on their website? Or are they an intern who just started who doesn't have purchasing authority, right?
Yeah, no authority. I don't know how much time you want to spend with them.
Yeah. And then route it. So we have an intelligent routing system that's based on the skills of your sellers. And that's the next step, is really to not just say, oh, round robin routing or whatever, really to say, okay, I'm going to describe what I'm good at. And these are the types of, like, if you have 12 different products, each of your sellers is probably good at like 1 or 2 of those products. So somebody's looking at one of those products, make sure that it routes to the right person who has the capacity, who has the skills to be able to follow up effectively and quickly with that person, so that they're not taking the first call and then being like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm not really the right person for this product. I'm going to do another call, to make sure you have that right first meeting, because you might not get a second meeting, right?
Yeah.
Especially if it's a good, if you have a real buyer and it's a real exec, they probably don't have time for a bunch of different meetings. So then once you've routed, draft that for your activities, and then also make suggestions for, follow-up so that you don't forget about it. The real theory here is that I think there's a lot of tools out on the market that are designed to generate new leads. And I think that that is somewhat of a commodity at this point. Getting new leads is easy. You can buy 1,000 emails easily. You could go to a conference, like a tech conference or an industry conference or whatever, and meet people and generate leads. Getting leads in the system is mostly a commodity at this point. Following up on them, doing something with them, I think is where companies are not really good at. They're good at selling once they have a hot opportunity. But really, there's the space between I got leads and I've got an opportunity to sell, that there's I think there's a real gap that we're trying to fill. And I think it's an area that you can use a lot of automation to kind of plow through a ton of leads and make sure you're surfacing ones that are real and can turn.
It's effective, like data mining. Like, you got this big pool, and you probably haven't been very efficient because it's overwhelming, and you haven't, you're giving somebody a great strategy, a tool to actually pull the most out of that resource pool. Like, you got this big archive or this big set of data, this big data lake. And people, like, they get overwhelmed if you don't have, it's like you got 5 sales guys. How do I discern out of this big data lake what I could actually sell? And and who I can sell to. Like, am I going to be able to actually be efficient at doing that? It sounds like you found a way to be the most efficient that you can be, and I guess you're probably perfecting it every day to make it more efficient.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the nice things about having a product, is you can continue to listen to feedback from customers and make changes and add to it and really make it work for people in new and unique ways. And so that's where we're at. We went live with the product, I think 3 weeks ago now, and already started to bring on new customers, and are really excited to hear feedback and things that we can make improvements on, and continue to evolve the product as well. So yeah, absolutely.
Now, B2B teams, you have a comment talking about like how they make mistakes with their pipeline, and we've been kind of talking high level, but are there pipeline examples that you can specify?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that one of the things that I've seen. Here's an example. I've gone to over 25 years, a million different like technology conferences, and I've kind of experienced the exact same thing at almost every one of them, which is you have a booth and you have some meetings and you have all this, and you're standing there with a group of people that are, as people come up, you're answering questions, you're scanning badges, and then at the end of the conference, that tech company will send you a spreadsheet of all of your leads, and you've got like 1,000 leads. Everybody's forgotten all of them because you know that you're home from the conference and kind of on to the next thing. And it's almost always the most senior people that have like, okay, I have a spreadsheet, we need to go through it and find the leads, and we need to like make this, and who reach out to these 100. And then over the course of the next 2 or 3 weeks, you send all of the emails and the follow-up. And this is like, I was just at the Google Cloud Next conference a few weeks ago, and I'm still getting first emails from companies that I met with back then. And it's like, who was this again? So I think like one of the things you could really be more effective at is just like the speed of follow-up of a new lead. And that is, if you can follow up at a tech conference while you're still there and be like, hey, let's grab a drink, or, that can do so much more than following up 3 weeks later with a formatted marketing email about your product that, so that I think is one area that is like, as you have, just large numbers of inbound leads, and you say, okay, now we need to figure out what to do with them. You're often, using your most expensive people. It's often, kind of senior executives that end up having to do it because it's nobody's real job to sort through it. So it's somebody's, it kind of raises to the top of the organization to figure out what to do with it. And then by the time everybody gets, figures out what to do with it, the time has passed and they're not, being as effective as they could. So I think time is one of the really most important things in terms of especially early sales. And I think pipeline is really, I think people do a really good job once they do have that opportunity, right? Having worked at Salesforce, I've really seen, the effectiveness of, when people are really working with a tool and really have the data in Salesforce in terms of opportunities and pricing and products and all of that. I'm not trying to solve that problem. And that's an area in which we're just integrating with Salesforce. So we'll have an app, or now it's called Agent Exchange, but we'll have an Agent Exchange app. But I think where there's, even within Salesforce, like the lead engagement kind of activities is something that is, kind of nascent within that Salesforce ecosystem too. So I think, when you have a really good lead that turns into an opportunity and you've got a really good seller on it, that business is going to close because of that human, ingenuity and skill of that seller. And that's what, like, how can you do more of that? How can you give that person more to sell? Because that's what they're good at. And that's why I think it's not a case where, hey, we're going to take away jobs. It's a case where you can give people that much more productivity by not having them spend a ton of time figuring out the tools and not having them spend the time stitching things together.
That's the way we were talking at the beginning, is like everybody thinking they have to go get a bachelor's in AI prompt engineering, when you actually, what software companies need to do, like what you're doing, is like, all of the startups I've always worked for, is like make the use case that sells the business case, right? Like you actually build a system that's going to give somebody something that, problem is some companies come in and say, hey, take this to solve your problem. And they really don't even have that problem. You're just trying to force your solution, right?
Yeah.
But what you want to do is actually take a problem that every salesperson, I got too many leads. I don't know how to discern them. I'm not as efficient as I could be. If you can make them more efficient, you turn them into a superstar, turn everybody into the person who's winning the conference. That's winning the awards. My dad was a sales guy for Prudential for 30 years.
Yeah.
He was always winning the conferences. He was like in the top tier. And they was trying to like, well, the management was like, well, we got to get Jones to train everybody else to do what Jones is doing.
Yeah.
So your AI is going to actually be able to get somebody up to the Joneses.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
That's the point, right?
What made him the best seller? Like, why was he that good at what he did? What was
I think it's like communication. My dad was very good. He had like a Rolodex and he had all these contacts, and he spent his whole life nurturing relationships.
Yeah.
Like he would go and everybody that got married, everybody that's got kids, everybody's going to college, everybody's getting a house, all their friends, all
Yeah.
like what church they went to, where they go. He just had all these relationship maps,
Yeah.
and everything was based on that.
Yeah.
It wasn't just like, oh, I know this person moved to the next. He continued to, to basically make sure that he nurtured all those relationships.
Yeah.
And he had cases over years where, he had the grandkids, he had the uncles, he had the nurse, he had all the friends, he had their doctors, their lawyers, whatever. He
Yeah.
did. It was like building this big cascading relationship map.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what a great seller is good at. My grandpa was the same thing. He was a field sales, agent. And by the time I was around, he was retired. But I remember walking down the street with him, and like people would come out of the house, be like, "Hey, Ed," like
Everybody knows him, yeah.
people love. Yeah.
Yeah, because if you know everybody, and then people are more likely to let you in,
Yeah.
and then actually talk to you and tell you their story. When they tell you your story, you pick up on, oh, they need this, they need that.
Yeah.
And it's not that you come in just trying to force the sale, you actually listen.
Yeah.
And then you make intelligent responses to what you heard.
Yeah.
And that's why I think people have to have listening skills and then storytelling skills
Yes.
and the discernment to be able to know like when you're coming on too strong or maybe you're not comes on strong enough.
Yeah.
And that's a human thing. But your tools that can actually pull, like, okay, get me the leads, and then I still have to use my secret sauce, which is me,
Yeah.
to actually make the sale. But like, if I can get the right information, that makes me better at making the sale. If you can give me all those details from all the basic algorithm that you're creating, these algorithms are giving you very good data.
Yeah.
And the better the data, the more likely you're going to win. Right?
Yeah. You got it.
Yeah, because that's the way the world is. Like, I'm a musician. See behind me, I got a lot of synthesizers, but I've been using AI in my workflow along with hardware
Yeah.
to do things I couldn't do. Like do a what if. It's like I don't have a $30,000, $300,000 Neve soundboard,
Yeah.
but if I can get a tool that mimics through AI a Neve that was used on Fleetwood Mac Rumors,
Yeah.
and give me some of the processors I need for the guitar or what I need. Like, what was on that bass? Can you simulate that? Well,
Yeah.
that's a cool case. I don't want it writing the song. I just
Yeah.
want it giving me that detail. I think when people use it for things like that, it's a value add. Like when you use it to write the song, then people say, well, that sounds too perfect. That doesn't sound authentic. That sounds like garbage.
Yeah.
And I think people would discern that.
I think so. Yeah.
So, I see you got the guitar up there. The couple.
Yeah, we have similar interest. I've got a few synthesizers myself. I've got a Juno.
We got 106.
And no, one of the newer ones. I forget the.
Oh, you got an X? I got a Juno X.
Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a Juno X. I got a grandma, a Moog grandma. I got tons of modulars.
Yeah.
I like a lot of modular stuff. And I mean,
Yeah.
I have a mix between. I have got a bunch of Akai MPC type stuff.
Yeah.
On one side of the room, and the other side of the room, I got a lot of analog and hardware synths.
Yeah.
And I like to mix it. And I've been playing with like using some of the tools to actually come up with like take my lyrics and then run them through different styles
Oh, cool.
and actually use my own voice, give it to my own voice, and then tell it to use my voice and then run through all these variations. Like, what would this sound like if I did this, like this, like this, like that? Come up with all these different things and kind of sample it,
Yeah.
put it into my sampler, then run it through. But it's still me.
I love it. Yeah. Yeah.
It's like there you can use things intelligently to value add without replacing the human element. I think that's where somebody's, oh, I'm going to be like HAL 9000, replace all humans and lock us out of the ship. Like, I don't think so. We don't have to be locked out of
What do
the
you think
ship.
you're doing, David?
Yeah, it's like, when I let you back in, let me back in the
Yeah.
airlock. It's like, no, I'm not.
Yeah.
You don't have to do it like that.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah. What software do you use to do that? And it's a genre shift that you're using to
Yeah,
do
well,
that?
I've been
Wow,
playing
yeah.
with like Grok,
Okay.
like to
Yeah.
do like short, low, and I kind of do like early, like Stevie Wonder, when he had a Moog,
Yeah.
it wasn't polyphonic. He recorded it, overdubbed it
Yeah.
multiple
I've used
times.
them. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Many of
I
them.
took, like, you can only get like 30 seconds out of grok,
Yeah.
but I do multiple groups of 30 seconds until I
Yeah.
get to like 4 minutes.
Yeah.
And then I put it together and then I run it through my MPC, or I actually run it through one of my hardware, like a Tascam
Yeah.
or 24.
Yeah.
And I'll just like bring it in and then I'll overdub real stuff on it. Like I'll actually put bass lines,
Yeah.
play piano parts. But I still have the human piece, but then I use the AI piece to come in on maybe 2 tracks.
Yeah.
And I'll run it through some processors or stuff. I have a bunch of different pedals and different things I run it through. But yeah, I think it's just like it to me, it's just a color, it's just a tone that I can bring in
Yeah.
and utilize like any tone. I
Yeah.
just decide to use it like, oh, this is my AI input. This is
Yeah.
my analog input. This is my digital input. This is my sample input. This is my 808 input. I just use it as a tool.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just a tool. That's exactly what it is. Yeah. And you're not doing anything different than, I mean, if you're recording every part and putting together a track, I mean, Prince did the same thing back in the 80s,
Yeah.
he just had different tools. And,
He's using a Lin, but he's actually on a bass. He's still playing his bass. He's still playing
Yeah.
his Stratocaster, his Telecaster.
Yeah.
He was actually, it's always been the same thing. Because I mean, I remember when Bob Moog came out with his like, initial Model Ones and stuff. I mean, Sun Ra went and got one.
Yeah.
And all these like purists in New York was like, "Oh, you can't touch that; it's not real."
Oh my God. Yeah.
But Sun Ra, like I can use it.
Yeah. Well, look at Bob Dylan when he first picked up an electric guitar. Everybody freaked out. I mean,
Yeah,
it's,
you can't do that. You're a Judas. It's like I don't believe
Yeah.
you. Like he said, he's like, no, I'm gonna keep on going. It's like 66. He
Yeah.
did it. At that. I guess at the festival when he was in London and they were yelling at him.
Mhm.
I actually got that tape when they were yelling
Yeah.
at him. But it's like like what he did in '66. By the time he's doing a Rolling Thunder,
Yeah.
it's the same thing. Everybody in the '70s, oh, well, that's the thing. It's like when '66, it wasn't the thing.
Yeah.
But in 72, 73, it was the thing. 75, it's the thing.
Time change.
Sometimes you're ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
I think that's what the tech is like. The tech sometimes gets ahead of the curve.
Yes.
The samplers got ahead of the rights management.
Yes.
You didn't
Yeah.
clear it, then you get in trouble. The same thing with this tech is like maybe it's gone beyond some of the IP stuff, but like, okay, we'll have to catch up because they always happens. Like, because stuff we write on paper, it gets it's like, in this digital age, anything that's on paper gets out of date pretty quick.
Yeah.
We just have to be mindful. I think of like, well, the human beings to me are all like, are you going to let the machine control you, or do you control the machine?
Yeah.
I think it's that's the overall arching thing. It's like we should never let the machines control us.
Yes.
We're the ones that created them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think I mean, even in the music sphere, right? Like, yes, it's possible to create an entire track with just a prompt, but is that a good track? Is it something anybody's ever going to listen to? Are you able to perform it live? No.
Yeah.
So I think where you take a real artist and they're using AI as a part of that workflow, it's just part of a workflow. It's a part of the creative process. And I think art has always been at the edge of technology, regardless of what the technology has been at the time. There's always been that, that you're right. And sometimes ahead of, how people are thinking about IP protections and things like that. And, but it always catches up and, people kind of figure out how to license samples and things like that. And they'll figure out how to license AI as well. And it'll be,
even with samples, I mean, if you're directing, you just take it,
Yeah.
then you're probably going to get hit. If you take it and then you reverse it,
Yeah.
right, or you invert it,
Yeah.
or you totally, you put it into, all types of processing. I mean, I've got some processors for like make noise. I can just totally take a sample and make it totally unrecognizable.
Yeah.
I can make it so like even when you run it through, you can't even find it. Like the digital rights management can't even pick up what it was.
But you think about the history of music too. Samples have been happening since before digital technology existed. Like jazz musicians had licks that they would copy from one to another.
Oh yeah, they would take a show tune and put it into a jazz tune.
Totally. Yeah,
Take
I
an
mean, all of
1820s
bebop.
riff and put it into a jazz tune, you know?
Yeah, I mean, all of bebop was taking old classic jazz tunes, taking the chord progressions and putting a different, melody on top of it and a faster melody on top of it.
Well, I mean,
So
it's like it's core like Robbie Robertson, a great guitar player, was
yeah,
always taking Curtis Mayfield songs and
yeah,
inverting them.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
the weight is like an inverted Curtis Mayfield song. He basically took it and changed it and
yeah,
from a soul song into an Americana song.
yeah,
And so you in the when you really look at it, you can pick up on it, but
yeah,
it's not directly apparent. And that's what happens in music all the time. People take forms from different genres and adjust them.
yeah,
All of the blues musicians, Lead Belly, Robert Johnson, they're all playing the same thing, but they're not playing it the same way.
totally. Yeah,
And that's the core. I mean, you think about if you look at Stevie Ray Vaughan playing Voodoo Child versus Hendrix.
yeah,
One of them is the Texas blues version.
yeah,
One of them is the original cosmic psychedelic thing.
yeah,
Both of them stand on their own.
yeah.
Some people might hear and say it's the same thing, but it's not.
No,
It's not the same thing.
no, two totally different ways of interpreting a song. Yeah,
Yeah, I think that's how people can take, what I noticed with AI is very, very dynamic.
yeah,
Because if I go and I put my poetry prompt into it and I ask it to do it one way, and I ask it to do it the same way the next time, it changes.
yeah,
It never comes in the same way. It's very dynamic. Now, from
yeah,
an artistic point of view, if you're somebody's kind of stream of consciousness, throwing things out, you say, "Whoa, I can use that."
yeah,
It's kind of like my oscillator. Like
yeah,
if I have an analog oscillator and I run an LFO on it, and it's at a certain temperature, it acts a different way than if it's like a half hour later.
yeah,
The next day when I turn it on, it doesn't sound the same. And
yeah.
I picked up on, hey, these things are kind of doing the same thing.
Yeah, humidity affects it, temperature affects it, everything
The
affects
the
it.
prompts that were giving me different results, and if I use that, I can have it trigger. I
Yeah,
started playing around with it, triggering some of my analog stuff.
yeah,
So it's like you can use it very creatively if you have a creative intent. If you tend to be a guy, I'm just going to cut and paste clone,
yeah,
then garbage in, garbage out. That's the general rule.
yeah, yeah,
You
absolutely.
know that.
Yeah,
But like you said, engineers can get a lot out of AI, maybe more than the average person.
yeah,
'Cause we can get into the guts of it
yeah,
and go into like, oh, this is what it's actually doing. Let me tweak it and do that. But the customer who has no idea what that stuff is,
yeah,
this is the kind of future, like what you're doing for the sales guys. They don't want to know how to be
no,
a prompt engineering king
yeah,
or queen. They just want to get their job done.
yes.
So you're just gonna, they shouldn't have to know what's going on under the covers.
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think there's always going to be the 5% or whatever who are like, that are really excited about the technology and are also great sellers. And that's cool, like if that's what they're interested in. But I really do feel like there's a much larger segment that is currently being horribly underserved by forcing people to learn, all of the engineering kind of background before they're able to get the benefit out of the AI tools. And that's the real goal, is to be able to say, let's give somebody an interface that they're used to. Let's give somebody a automation that is, works without them having to do a ton of setup, that gets, gets a particular job done, gets a particular workflow done, and is also lets them know what the next step is, so that they know what to expect. And I think, having a little bit of an opinionated view on a sales process and making it work for a company can really help a company get more done with the leads that they have, and drive more business out of it. So that's the goal.
Yeah, it's like the whole history of like, industrial revolution is making things more efficient
Yeah,
so that you can, and we've gone beyond like the Model T era that you can have any color you want as long as it's black.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
now that we can have a lot of diversity in our widgets or our services or our products can be customized, as we said. And I think that's the key to the modern, winning state of a business is like, don't make people fit into your workflow.
yeah,
Find out what the customer wants and make a workflow that represents that.
yes, yeah.
So I think that's where you are. And we do have your QR code up. So if people don't understand how that works, you can take your phone and you can scan that. So if people scan your QR code and go to your website, what do they find there?
What they'll find there is a website that tells a little bit about what YouEx.ai does. There's a demo video. It can shows you that sort of 7-step process that I've talked through of that research and scoring and all of that. Also, if you interact with the agent, which is the YouEx.ai agent that's deployed within 5 minutes, ask it for 50% off discount. It'll give you 50% off discount. So that is the quickest way to get benefit from listening to us today and giving it a try. Free trial, this 2-week trial. If you need more than that, just let me know. And I'm more than happy to chat with anybody too. So the best way to get in touch with me, same way, go to YouEx.ai, ask the agent and give it your name and email, and I will be rapidly in touch with you because that's what the product does. So
Yeah. We also have your Instagram down below, and both of those links are below. If you don't like QR codes, we'll be able to click through that. We've been live on LinkedIn and Kick and YouTube. And I want to thank you again for being here on a Saturday afternoon to talk about your product and your services. And I think it's really enlightening in this world to talk about AI. Seems to be controversial with some folks, but anything that's new, people don't know what it is. They need to kind of understand it. And that's why we like to have these open forums so we can discuss it without all the hype and actually say what it is. Like every time we talk about something, we actually go into a little depth. That's why we go longer than 15 minutes. But I want to thank you for being here today on the show. Thank you again for being on the Family Electric Ghost podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. Really enjoyed it. Really great conversation. So thank you so much.
Thank you.